Alright, I realized that it's been a little while since I recorded any videos, and I decided I travel for work quite a bit, so I decided that this time around I'm gonna take the little video camera I have with me and talk into the camera when the opportunity arises. The opportunity arose. I am in Montreal. So if you look outside the window, I don't know how well you can see, it looks just like any other city in North America, but I am in Montreal. Everybody speaks French and some English. Everybody speaks French, some speak English, some don't. But let's see, I'm gonna lift it up a little bit, see if you can see me. Okay. I was looking over my notes and I realized that I got done testing Leupold's LCO, light carbon optic red dot, and D-EVO, that funny Z-shaped magnified sight, quite a while back, and I never wrote it up, which is basically shame on me. So I figured I'll talk a little bit about it. I took some pictures, I'll find them and put them up on my website, and I'll add some words as I have time. I've been sort of busy. This whole day job thing is terrible for my hobbies. But anyhow, so LCO and D-EVO. First couple of words about LCO, light carbon optic. It's basically a fancy red dot sight by Leupold. I think it runs for $900 to $1,000, so it's expensive. It is extremely bright. The dot works for a long time. It uses CR123 battery. The whole optic is roughly the size, a little smaller, but a little narrower. But size-wise, somewhere between the Aimpoint Micro and the EOTech. Overall shape is a little bit reminiscent of EOTech, but it's not a holographic sight. It's a reflex sight. The dot is 1 MOA. The brightness of that is manually adjustable, and with a nice rotary control. And the dot can get, like I said, very bright, very sharp. So theoretically, 1 MOA dot, you can get really nice precision. And I can attest to that. You can. It's very nice. Now, with the dot size for reflex sights, you have to be sort of careful, because you will, if you have astigmatism or anything like that, you will find that it's not really 1 MOA dot. I have astigmatism, so what is supposed to be nice round dot looks like this sort of thing. So kind of kidney beans a little bit, becomes slightly blurry, but I can use it. It's not that difficult for me. So if you have astigmatism, you have to be careful. Going for the smallest dot, thinking that you're going to get precision, may not be the best way to go. Generally, going with a dot that's larger in size will make the dot edges look sharper, and then you can use the edge for the aiming. So kind of, if you are young with healthy eyes, no astigmatism, small dot, great idea. I used to be that way. As you get older, consider a larger dot. Yes, it covers more of the target, but you can use the edge and use it for consistent aiming. With that out of the way, I looked at 2 LCOs. The first one Leupold sent me immediately crapped out. What it crapped out? It was nice, bright, and sharp, and all that, but I could not set it, and I ran out of adjustment on a standard rail. I said, So I called Leupold. They sent me another one, and that one worked fine. I sent the first one back. The guy I talked to, Dave, at Leupold, has sort of sounded surprised, and he's not known as a liar, so I believe him. He said, "Oh, that's the first dead one I've seen." Doesn't mean there weren't any, but it's the first dead one he has seen. The second one I had worked flawlessly, and I now that I had some suspicions about durability, obviously, what I did was I went and wrapped it in a little towel and went to play soccer with it around the parking lot. It was not affected in any way, shape, or form. I put it back in a rifle. It was still sighted in. So I'm gonna write it off as a glitch, partly because on a sample size of 2, I can't make any significant reliability claims. Aside from that, The dot worked well. It was very easy to see. The window is fairly large. The border, the housing, the way it's set up is minimal. Just a high quality dot. Is it worth $1,000? Not to me. I sent it back to Leupold. But it's a nice red dot. If you need the smallest, the brightest dot, that's probably it right now. Okay. More interesting, more unusual was the D-EVO, D-EVO. It's an abbreviation of something. Don't remember what it is, but conceptually I like it, and I like it a lot. The way this whole D-EVO thing works, it's a small fixed power site. It uses Poro prisms. So if you pay attention, all the binoculars used Poro prism, and Poro prism is a design where the objective and the eyepiece are not in line with each other, right? So they're offset by a set of two image-directing prisms. And that's how this one works. So with the D-EVO, the objective hangs to the side of the rifle. I've heard some people call it a brass deflector. I've never had brass hit this thing, but I imagine it's possible. It doesn't stick up that high, I think. And the way they use the prisms, well, the mirrors, I don't know what they use inside, I assume it's prisms, is that the way the eyepiece is set up, it's tilted, normal scope is flat, right? This one's tilted ever so slightly upwards, so that the exit pupil is also a little bit higher than you would expect. What it allows you to do, there is a point over there behind the scope, where you're all lined up to look through D-EVO, but technically your eye is above the body of the scope. So if there is a red dot sight in front of the D-EVO, you can set it up so that you'll see without moving your head at all, you can see both through the red dot sight and through the magnified D-EVO. And changing between the red dot sight, the non-magnified view, and the 6x magnified view of the D-EVO, you don't have to move anything. Your eye sort of naturally shifts vision. It's kind of cool. It took a little bit of an adjustment, but I adjusted to it fairly quickly. And honestly, if you want a dual power sight, that is the fastest way to go, in principle. In practice, there were a little bit of quirks, but before I talk about the quirks, and I'm not going to spend too much time on it, I want to say this. So I haven't seen a whole lot of these around, so I'm guessing it wasn't terribly commercially successful for Leupold. I really, really, really hope that they don't abandon the concept. I think as is it works well, and if they put a little bit more work into it, I can think of ways to make it better. If they put just a little bit more work into it, I think it's a brilliant idea. I think it works. It has its limitations, it has its strength, but fundamentally I think it has a place in the market. Then again, what do I know? So what's good about the D-EVO and what's bad? What's good? Well, the concept is good. What's good is that it works. What is not so good is that the D-EVO is fundamentally a 6-power magnified sight with the Leupold CMRW reticle, which I happen to like. I may be the only one, but I like that reticle. And a 20mm objective. And the way it was, of course now my watch is going to beep, and the way it was designed, the eye relief on it is a little bit tight. It's not that it's short, it's not that short, but it is not, the eye positioning is not very flexible. That's what people call eye box. I despise the term eye box, so I try not to use it. But if you want to use the term eye box is sort of tight on it. And that makes things a little bit difficult. Why is it so tight? Well, there are some physical limitations in how you build a sight like this. The housing of the eyepiece has to be fairly small, so it restricts a little bit the eye relief flexibility, and also restricts a little bit the field of view. The 6-power sight does not have the widest field of view in the world. Another thing I suspect, I don't know, but I suspect Leupold was trying to do is that they wanted to make sure that when you look through the D-EVO through the 6-power sight, that you don't see the front sight. If you happen to have an iron sight in the rifle, you don't see the front sight, the muzzle, the barrel, the handguard. And it's not that straightforward because the D-EVO sits comparatively low, it's offset to the right, but not that much. I think if they did the same thing but with a 5 power sight, it would work better, honestly. There is something magical about 6 power. I would have been fine with 5 power. As is, 6x20, the exit pupil is, was it 3.3 millimeters, which is a little bit on the low side. And tight eye relief, sort of narrow field of view, I would have taken a 5 power version of this just fine. Or if you want to retain the 6 power version, you could re-engineer it slightly for a slightly larger objective, and that'll work fine. That'll work fine just as well. The fixed power scope is non-magnified. Excuse me, not magnified. It is obviously magnified 6 power. It is not illuminated. The CMRW reticle is fairly bold. As I mentioned, I like the CMRW reticle, although I don't fully understand why they would use it in that exact form in this scope. So if you remember how CMRW reticle looks, there is a dot, and there's a horseshoe, and then there's this whole hold over and hold for windage business happening. And I like all of that, and it's fairly thick and fairly bold and fairly easy to see in low light. The horseshoe is there primarily for speed, right? So you use the horseshoe at lower magnifications and lower range variables, that kind of stuff, to give yourself a little bit more speed. Why, for the name of God, you'd want it on the 6 power scope when it is designed to be combined with a non-magnified red dot sight? I have no idea. But either way, the reticle worked. So I mounted the whole business on a scope and spent a little bit of time experimenting and, I don't know, minutes, not hours, minutes into it, transitioning from looking through the red dot versus the magnified D-EVO became absolutely seamless and absolutely natural. I liked it enough where when I was testing it, I mounted on a rifle on an AR-15 and went to front sight and took a carbon class. So I used it there, and it worked flawlessly, honestly. But the way to think about it is not to think of it as a variable scope, etc. It is designed to be a carbine with a red dot that works really well at speed, like any other red dot reflex sight. And when you need it, you have the 6 power scope at your discretion. If you are shooting from some really convoluted position, you can lose the view through the 6 power D-EVO because the eye relief is tight. Not short, tight, restrictive. Okay. The red dot works, right? So you're going fast, the red dot is always there. But if you want the D-EVO to be compatible with complicated, weird-ass shooting positions, with a little bit higher speed and all that, the eye relief has to be reworked. So, which is sort of why I maintain that Leupold should stay with the concept. There are multiple ways of doing this. If I was them, I don't understand why they really wanted to make the red dot as a separate sight. I think they could have done a little bit more by integrating the red dot and the EVO into the same basic package, or modularizing them in some way. I think that could work really well. It would allow them to support slightly different spacing and all that. I think they spend a little bit too much time and effort in trying to keep the EVO as low as possible. In the world of head-up shooting with an AR or adjustable stocks, I see very little problem with increasing the height of the whole thing a little bit. The way it is right now, it looks to me like it is set up. The red dot sight that works with the EVO is set up for absolute co-witness, right? So okay, raise it up a little bit, well, 1/3 co-witness, and that gives you a little bit more space for the D-EVO, for the magnified sight. There are ways to work this, but with all that, it's of interest to me, right? So I spend a lot of time with low range variables. My primary AR is set up with an Alcan Spectra DR with a red dot sight on top of it. And I've tried the Spectra DRs. No, I've tried everything, right? And ultimately, if you want rapid transition from non-magnified to magnified view, there is nothing as good as the D-EVO with the red dot sight that I've seen yet. With a low range variable, you have to reach over and change magnification. With the LCAN and red dot, or ACOG and a red dot, right? So you have to raise your head a little bit. Basically, in my case, I have to transition from cheek weld to chin weld to be able to use the red dot on top of the LCAN. And I took another class with that configuration. It works fine, right? You just have to train yourself. With the D-EVO and a red dot, you're set up. This is my magnified view. This is my not magnified view. No change whatsoever. And I like that. So I hope Leupold doesn't abandon it. I need to ask them if they'll have a Gen 2. They really should. It's unique to them. It is a clever idea. The only other limitation I can think of is that because the rifle's like this and the objective hangs here, right? If you're shooting around a barricade or something, you're on this side, you're fine. On this side, you're blocking the magnified optic fine. Use it as a barricade rest and aim with a red dot. Is it a downside? Yes. Is it a showstopper? I don't think so. But to each his own. Anyhow, that's a few words on the D-EVO and LCO. Both are interesting products. Both are the ideas that I would like to see developed further. I don't know if Leupold doing it. I hope they're working in the EVO Gen 2. I hope they're going to integrate the red dot sight in it. Ultimately, if I was them, let me think about it. So Leupold used to have this sight they called the prismatic, right, which was a non-magnified sight, focusing non-magnified sight. So for people like me who have astigmatism, that would have been a really cool thing, right, because it has a proper edge reticle and it's always in focus with my eye. It always looks sharp, while the red dots, holographs, don't look terribly sharp. If I was Leupold, I would basically make a single integrated sight with a simple, not magnified, but focusing sight, like the prismatic on top, and a powered sight, 5 or 6 power, whatever they can end up going with, on a bottom with the two optical axes converging, and that's where you position the eye. I think it would work well. I'd pay for that, right? It would be a little bit heavier. The prismatic is heavier than red dot, but I think it would ultimately be the fastest combination out there, in my opinion. Then again, it's just my opinion. I could be wrong. Anyhow, that's it for the D-EVO and LCO, and I'll see what else I need to talk about.